So I can talk about the impact of Edward Snowden through two legal cases that happened shortly before he went public in June of 2013. So the first one it was by the ACLU. The ACLU has been trying to challenge what's known as the FISA Amendments Act, which passed in 2008. This basically legalized the warrantless surveillance that was revealed in 2005 and 2006 in the Bush administration. And the ACLU had been trying to challenge the constitutionality of that law, saying that it doesn't comply with the Fourth Amendment. It allows the government to collect categories of persons' emails with no probable cause, including untold number of Americans being swept up in communications that go overseas. And they actually couldn't even get to the point of discovery. The government was throwing out all sorts of arguments, whether it's the state secrets privilege, which basically says that even if something's unconstitutional because it's secret, it can't be litigated in open court. But what actually ended up happening was they went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court dismissed the case for lack of standing, meaning that they didn't ever get to the merits of the case or any evidence. The Supreme Court said that because the ACLU could not prove with a certainty that their clients, who were lawyers and journalists and human rights workers who regularly would be talking to the people who would be targeted under this law, because they couldn't prove with the certainty that they were being spied on, that they didn't have standing to challenge the law. So essentially it was impossible to challenge, because of course the government was keeping every single person that they were using under this law a secret. Justice Breyer wrote in his dissent, perhaps, despite pouring rain, the streets will remain dry, which is essentially his interpretation of how the Supreme Court ruled. So, we knew it was going on, but the court cases just could not go forward. The other case was an EFF, Freedom of Information Act case. Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon had been screaming from the rafters in Congress that there was a secret interpretation of the Patriot Act that would shock every American if they knew how it was being used. And because it was classified, and even though he knew what it said, Senator Wyden could not say it without losing his position in the Senate. And so EFF, the organization I used to work for, sued for this secret interpretation. Just 2 months before Edward Snowden came out, the government not only would they not give us a single word of content of their secret interpretation of what's supposed to be a public law, but they wouldn't even tell us the number of pages they had in their archives that dealt with the secret interpretation. So fast forward 2 months later to Edward Snowden, there are 3 new lawsuits filed by ACLU, EFF, and other organizations. One which our judge has already said this surveillance is likely unconstitutional. The first time we've actually gotten to a ruling that is on the merits. And in the EFF's FOIA case, after Edward Snowden came out, a judge ordered the government that they had to stop this obfuscation, this basically throwing up a wall and not giving any information out. Since then, the government has been forced to release thousands of pages on their secret interpretations. And one of the most amazing things about Edward Snowden and his revelations is not what we've learned from the leaks themselves, but what the government has been forced to admit now. We have a secret FISA court ruling that some NSA surveillance was unconstitutional. We have 2 more that say that they were violating privacy rules systematically. That's not my word, that's the judge's word, systematically and continuously for 5 or 6 years. Searching their phone database 90% of the time that didn't reach the legal standard that they were supposed to reach. Not just like isolated cases of abuses, but just pure abuse across the board. And none of this would have ever happened without Edward Snowden. We have been fighting in court for years, and he really gave the entire American public a gift because now we actually have a chance to turn back some of the surveillance, which we may have known about from whistleblowers like Tom Drake and others for years, but the court system and Congress refused to acknowledge, and now we have that chance.